NATO is the latest to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine, describing it as reckless action that will lead to loss of lives. The organization has called on the Russian government to withdraw its troops. Professor in Public International Law at the University of Johannesburg, Hennie Strydom, joins us for more on this. Thank you very much for availing yourself. So we heard from NATO a few moments ago, and the Secretary General speaking of a new reality. Some have spoken of Russia creating a new world order here, and this being the biggest test for the West.
Yes, good afternoon. Do you want me to respond to that?
Yes,
what you just said?
Yeah. Yes, please, your thoughts, your interpretation of events that we're seeing unfolding.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what the language is at the moment used to describe the military action by Russia. Some individual states have called it aggression, and that's a very strong term because when you have a situation of aggression in international law, it entitles the Security Council to term that as or describe that as a threat to international peace and security. And the state who is the victim of that has a right to self-defense until the Security Council takes over and authorizes some kind of measure which may include the use of force. But I doubt whether it will come to that point. So there are different reactions by different states at the moment. I think at this point in time we should consider that as a very serious situation.
You say... Oh, please finish your thought.
And we should not underestimate the consequences of that, both militarily, political and economical for the region, but also for other countries. So I think everybody is anxious at this point in time to find some kind of a de-escalation, some kind of a settlement. And I've seen a few hours ago the Security Council is again having a sort of emergency session to discuss the matter, and it will be interesting to see what comes out of that meeting.
You say the term aggression is a strong term. How would you then characterize it?
Well, aggression is one of the sort of factual situations described in the United Nations Charter in Chapter 7, which entitles the Security Council to take certain measures, including the use of force. And in that context, the state who is the victim of that aggression has the right to self-defense. So that tells us how serious this kind of action is or could be.
Some have accused the West of having an attention deficit disorder, taking a look at Russia's invasion of Crimea back in 2014. Your interpretation on that?
Yeah, it seems so that there's no unanimity of mind amongst the countries who should take action in this regard, either at the diplomatic or other level. And I don't think that helps the situation, because if you have different approaches to this, it might not bring about the consequences we all desire. You talk about the Crimea. I think the approach or strategy rather followed by Russia reminds one of the 1956 invasion of Hungary, where you had a sort of similar strategy used in order to militarily invade Hungary at the time. And there's another coincidence between the current situation and the 1956 one. Currently, one of the complaints Russia has is the growing influence of NATO in that area and close to its borders, because of the fact that there are sentiments indicating that Ukraine would like to become a member of NATO. Now, in 1956, the revolutionary forces in Hungary, who wanted to get rid of the Soviet imposition of all kinds of laws and policies and practices, indicated that they would like to withdraw from the Warsaw Pact. And that would have had an impact on the buffer zone that was created at the time by the satellite states, and which gave some secure position to the old Soviet Union. And now we have the issue about NATO. So I think these coincidences matter. They matter in terms of geopolitics, and they matter in terms of the strategies that the countries involved in this conflict are using.
The European Union, NATO itself, calling this an attack on a peaceful sovereign nation. What do you perceive the consequences are? There's a widely held view that Russia made a mistake here.
I don't think he made a mistake. I think it was calculated. My reading of the situation is that Russia would like to find itself in a position where it can negotiate from a stronger position. If it succeeds to come to the aid of the self-proclaimed republics in Luhansk and Donetsk on the eastern side of Ukraine, and successfully defeats the Ukrainian army in those regions, then it's a totally different ballgame. And when the matter then goes for a diplomatic settlement and for negotiations, it may have consequences for the outcome of those negotiations. And I don't think that this is idle thinking. My reading is this is indeed the strategy, or one of the strategies followed by Russia in this incident.
Thank you very much for helping us make sense of the latest developments. Professor Hennie Strydom is Professor in Public International Law at the University of Johannesburg.